Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about how to use trigonometry to calculate area and perimeter. We're going to focus specifically in this video on triangles, and then we can switch up the shapes in different videos. So for right now, we want to go over some formulas to know. Area of a triangle is 1/2 of your base times your height, and perimeter is just the sum or addition of all of the side lengths. Something to note here when we're talking about height is always perpendicular. So unless you know for a certain fact that you're looking at a right triangle, we have to drop down what's called our altitude. You might remember that from a prior unit. Drop down an altitude so we know that we have a perpendicular height. So if we look at our first example here, we're asked to calculate the area of the triangle. We have a 48-degree angle measure. The angle at the top kind of looks like a right angle, but we can't assume anything. So that means I'm going to drop down a perpendicular here. So that way I know I have a right triangle. I know my base anyways. My base and my height are always going to be perpendicular to each other. So if this is going to be considered my height, then this is going to be considered my base. So if I'm using my formula, 1/2, my base is 21. I just now have to figure out what that height is. So I'm going to call it h. And then I can use trigonometry from here in order to figure out what that height actually is. Our h is going to be our opposite side. Looks like the 12 here we can use as the other side of our triangle. That's our hypotenuse. So that means we're looking at a sine ratio. Sine of 48 degrees is equal to our height over 12. I'm going to solve for h here and just say that it's 12 times the sine of 48 degrees. I'm doing another step here, so I don't really want to round an answer for h, because if I round this answer and then plug that in to my area, it's just going to be longer, farther away from the truth than it needs to be. So in my calculator, I'm going to type in exactly what you see here, and then that's going to give me my final answer. So let's shrink this a little bit so we can see the calculator. So again, I'm adding in 1/2, so 0.5 times 21 times 12 times the sine of 48 degrees. Hit enter, and we get that our area is about 93.64 centimeters squared. So to answer the question, the area is approximately 93.64 centimeters squared. All right, so that's one example. In the next example, we're going to go down and ask us to find to calculate the perimeter of the triangle. So here we know for a certain fact that we do have a right triangle, so that's a good starting point. It just means then that we have to solve for both x and y and then add all of our answers together. So you guys can probably do this based off of what you know. So if you want to pause the video here, try it yourself, and then check your answer, go right ahead. For those that want to follow along, you can follow with me right now. Remember, solve for y first. That looks like it's going to be a tangent ratio. So the tangent of 22 degrees is going to be opposite over adjacent. So that means that y is going to actually be equal to 6 over the tangent of 22. Again, I'm leaving my answers as precise as possible. I'm trying to avoid getting those decimal round off errors as much as possible. If I look to solve for x next, I'm going to base it off of what I have just in case I made a boo-boo on y. So that means I'm going to be looking at a sine ratio, again, of the 22 degrees. Sine is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So that means our hypotenuse is going to be 6 divided by the sine of 22. So if I'm going to try to find my perimeter now, the perimeter is going to be equal to 6, because that's what we were given, plus the 6 over tangent of 22, plus the 6 over sine of 22. Again, this is all going to be calculator work. Let's make sure that we use our parentheses. So I'm going to clear that out. So it's going to be 6 plus, and then in parentheses, 6 divided by the tangent of 22, close both sets of parentheses, plus parentheses 6 divided by the sine of 22. Hit enter. And we here get our perimeter is about 36.87. Oops. So perimeter is about 36.87. our units